the home of all Rubik's Cube types of
They can be used to mold. The first step is to put those edges put into this little frame. And then the middle layer, that's pretty much what you have to pressing pieces together. So some pieces are assembly. So a lot of them are bigger cubes and to lubricate them. So you can see like a first million Rubik's Cubes and more. The Rubik's Cube, the best-selling toy of all time, with 350 million units sold. Well, not at all. In this video, I'm going to be visiting a factory that produces 70 million Rubik's Cubes every single year. And that factory is the MoYu factory in Shantou, China. I'm going to be visiting their factory, seeing how they make these cubes, including the new fully automated 3x3 assembly lines. I also want to thank MoYu, who's provided us with 3 Weilong WRM AI cubes to give away for this video. Check out the description to see how you can win.
Alright, so now I'm on my way to go visit MoYu. Right now I'm leaving Guangzhou and I'm getting ready to get on the train to go to Shantou, which is where the factory is located. I am at the train station getting ready to get on the train, but it will leave in a couple minutes, so I better get on. Alright, so now I just got off the train and I've arrived in Shantou. So something that I'm not sure you know about Shantou, it's actually pretty much the home of all Rubik's Cube manufacturing. Every Rubik's Cube factory, except for GAN, is in Shantou. I remember last time I came, I think I saw some like cube advertisements on the side of the road and stuff, so I'll keep my eye open to see on the way, see if I can see anything like that too.
The Chenghai district of Shantou City, where MoYu's factory is located, is a national and really global toy manufacturing hub. But of all toys, the top dog is definitely the Rubik's Cube. And what's a better display of this than Rubik's Cube public art?
And here's the cube. It doesn't tear anything. So I've arrived at the MoYu factory. It might be a place that's familiar from those who watched the last video. Guys, this is still the same place as last time. But now we're going to go in and see what's new. So our first stop is to check out their exhibition room. Here they have some of the things that are not cubes. All kinds of these blocks made into these into these cars, which are also blocks but made into it's all kinds of different types of shapes, different types of buildings, for example. So this is also a pretty big part of what they do as well. And then there's of course the cubes. So you can see there's all of their cubes that they're doing. And this is their main exhibition room here at their factory. The newest cubes they've got here. Prototype for new AI cubes that they're working on. Yeah. Feels pretty good.
There are, of course, many office spaces where the designers, marketing, and operations work. If you're interested in learning more about what it's like to design a cube and to work closely with MoYu to produce it, I'm actually doing a live stream at Cubing Life Academy on July 18th with Yusheng, who is the creator of the Huameng series under MoYu. Feel free to join. If you have any questions, you can definitely send them to us in advance as well. But I'm sure what you really want to see is the production. The cubes are all injection molded, and so the first step is to make the molds themselves. This is a very complicated and demanding part of the process, and MoYu has actually been making all of their molds in-house starting last year. After the molds are created, they can be used to create the base parts from plastic pellets using the injection molding machines. Something cool is that MoYu said that these machines now automatically extract the frame from the injection mold and then recycle them back into the machines. And that's something that they had to do manually last time I visited the factory, so quite a savings on this part too. Now this is the most secretive part, and so I unfortunately wasn't allowed to film very much. The next step, the assembly, is the most spectacular. In particular, I was super excited to visit MoYu's fully automatic assembly lines, which are used for the Weilong 3x3 and 2x2. This first line here was under maintenance today, but there are others to see. Let's go and take a look at the process together. A Rubik's Cube is made up of a few different types of pieces. You have the core, and then you have centers which are essentially attached to the core but can turn, and then the other pieces which latch underneath the centers. Here we have the screws which are funneled in through here that will be used to attach the core to the centers. So here we have the center pieces which essentially are brought in through this little rail here. We have the screws and the springs which are inserted through the top. And at the top of the screen, you can see that they're actually screwing it in with these little mechanical arms here. So the next step is to put on the center caps, which are then inserted on top. The next thing here we have is the edges and the corners as well, which are essentially pressed together to make them whole, similar to what we have here. And so once they're pressed together, they have to be inserted into that core which we already made. So right now we already made 4 pieces of the core. And so what the first step is to put those edges in between these center pieces in the core. And what that does is essentially makes a middle layer of the cube. These machines are so impressive. One huge machine just to make a very simple little Rubik's Cube. So after you have the middle layer done, the next step is to do the top and bottom layers. So here we have the pieces which have already been pressed together, and they're put into like a little template kind of thing, I would say. And so they're essentially just laid out in there, and then once they're laid out in the template, they're brought out and pushed together. Once they're pushed together, they can then be put together with the middle layer. So you see here, the bottom layer is put into this little frame, and then the middle layer, which we have already assembled, is brought on top of it to make the first 2 layers. And then if you look on the left of the screen right now, you can also see that the last layer is put in a very similar manner. Once that's done, all you have to do is put in the remaining center pieces and then put up the center caps, and you essentially have a completed cube. Here on the screen you see how there's a couple cubes with defects. Essentially the center cap on the orange side hasn't been put up. I'm sure that'll be raised in QC later. But that's pretty much what you have to get the final cube done, fully automated. So they have multiple of these 3x3 lines which they use for their Meilong 3x3. But on top of that, they also have an automated process for their Meilong 2x2s. So here I have about 1 minute or so of footage just going through the process of the 2x2. It's less structured, we're just gonna look around. I find I get hypnotized looking at this. If that's not your piece of cake, then you can move forward by about 30 seconds to get to the end of this step.
And then of course not every puzzle can be done automatically. And so here we have the assembly lines for all of the other puzzles. So everything else that has to be done manually. So like the pyramid, for example, cubes, 6x6, 7x7, 21x21, it's all done here.
Now these are done manually, but that doesn't mean that there are no machines helping them. In fact, really the first step of the assembly, which is not actually done in this room, is pressing pieces together. So some pieces like the edges and the corners are actually made up of multiple pieces. And then after they're molded, some magnets have to be added manually, but then mostly they can be placed into machines that can press them together, producing these compound pieces. Another contraption that you'll see a lot in this stage is something that looks a lot like a manual drill press. And essentially it's what they use to screw in the screws to the core. And so in one fluid motion, you can get the screw screwed in and the centerpiece is attached to the core. And so here at the beginning of the line, we have mostly those doing the earlier steps. And then as we progress through this line, we'll see that a lot of them are doing further assembly. So a lot of them are bigger cubes and they're at the stage of the assembly of the pieces and not having to worry about the core anymore. Once assembled, every cube has to go through a certain amount of quality control and then it is cleaned. So here we have a few people doing the cleaning of all of these cubes. Once the cubes have all been cleaned, the next step is to lubricate them. So you can see these two people, the one on the left there is lubricating and working in the lube, and the one on the right is then putting the inner packaging. So essentially putting the plastic wrap around the cube. Now that is all done manually still, and there is no automated process for those, even for the cubes which are assembled fully automatically. Once those cubes have been wrapped in plastic, they're then put into these blue bins. Now these blue bins are essentially like a first storage, and so all of the cubes that have been assembled, they're put in here, and they're put in here until essentially they're ordered or they're ready to be packaged for the final packaging. I didn't film this footage from this time, so I'm showing you a few clips from 2019, but it's basically the same still. Now, once the cubes are packaged in their final packaging with their final box, they're then put into the big cardboard boxes, put into their storage room, and ready to be shipped away. So you can see in these videos, there are really so many cubes here. Looking at their storage room, it's no doubt that this factory can produce 70 million Rubik's Cubes and more every single year. And there we have it, a tour of the largest Rubik's Cube factory in the whole world. So thank you very much for sticking with me for the last 10 minutes. This was actually filmed about 7 months ago, so I filmed it in December of 2023 when I went to their factory. It took me a while to get around to editing it and going through everything, but it really was a lot of fun going through all those memories, seeing everything in the factory again, and I hope that you enjoyed it just as much as I did. So about the giveaway that I mentioned in the introduction, MoYu has prepared 3 Weilong WRM V10 cubes that I'm going to be giving away. To participate in this giveaway, I have details in the description, but basically I'm going to ask you to subscribe, to make any comment on this video, and to fill out a Google form that I have a link for in the description. And then what I'm going to do is, in about 2 weeks, I have the specific date in the description, I'm going to do a random draw of everybody who participated, and I'm going to get in touch with you from your contact information, and we're going to go and send those cubes to you. I encourage you to participate in this giveaway, and hopefully you can be one of the lucky winners.